Hey Printifixes, this video is about how I got to be a senior software engineer by 21 without any formal education in software engineering. And yeah, so today we're gonna take a break from debugging and just sit down, have a nice chat about my career journey as well as my kind of education journey, how I got into programming and what I learned, how I learned it. And yeah, so strap in and let's navigate this maze. So starting off with how I actually got into programming itself, when I was like around 12, at my school they started a new club, which was Lego Robotics, and it was using Lego Mindstorms, which is really cool. And I actually ended up like begging my mum to buy me my own Lego set of Mindstorms so I could do it at home as well. um, so it was really cool, and it had like motors and sensors and stuff like that, and it had like a CPU which you could connect to your computer and program through block-based programming. So that was really my first introduction to programming something, and it was really cool. I think seeing software written on a computer actually impacting something physically, like making motors turn, deciding how the sensor data does what. It was really awesome. And from there, I did some Visual Studio stuff, which I don't really remember. It's a bit fuzzy, but it was like some crappy Windows program where you can move around like a tank with WASD and like shoot stuff, I think. And from there, I started getting into Minecraft mods with Java and Eclipse. And I made this mod that had like another dimension and a whole set of tools and new mobs and stuff like that. So that was really fun. And from there, I also tried my hand at making some really simple games and like mobile apps with like Lua, which is pretty strange for mobile apps. It was this thing called Corona SDK, which I think now is like dead. But yeah, that's how I got started. So when I was 16 and in high school, I was bored out of my mind, and I was teaching myself how to make games and apps for just for fun outside of school. And I wanted to make money, and I wanted to make apps to make money. So I was going through courses on like Udemy and YouTube and stuff like that. And from there, I basically learned how apps communicate with servers. I guess before then, it never clicked for me. I learned about stuff like Firebase and Parse, which is now dead. Rip Parse. And then like learning about those things, it clicked to me how like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter actually work. So that really gave me inspiration for probably my longest running project, which is called GWM, Game With Me, which is an amazing name, right? But basically, it's a social media for gamers and people to find other people with similar interests in games. So yeah, I made that outside of school, and I initially made it in like native Swift for iOS, native Java for Android, and Angular JS. So it was like super, it was super spread out. You can imagine 3 projects for one person is a lot. But eventually, as I learned more, I learned about stuff like React and React Native. So I eventually converted it all to React and React Native, which made it a lot easier for me to implement features and quality control and make things better. So yeah, in grade 10, when I was 16, I was missing a lot of days of school due to stagnation. And I actually had like really bad migraines, which I think were due to mostly around like stress of missing school and feeling like I'm stuck. Um, so yeah, but I talked to my teachers about my problems, and thankfully they were like all very understanding and they were really helpful. And I even like spoke to the principal of my high school, and he helped me to get into advanced classes. So I was doing year 11 software classes at the same time as my year 10 classes. And because in my high school there was a opportunity for some year 11 students to also do a university course, which if you get a distinction or higher in, you get a scholarship to that university. So luckily I was able to do that university course as well because I was doing the year 11 classes. And that was programming fundamentals, that university course, which was in Java, and it was actually it was really basic. I mean, it's called programming fundamentals, but I thought at, a university level, it would be a bit more advanced. So that was a bit of a breeze as well for me, and a bit of an eye opener that, uni isn't the peak of learning for software, or it doesn't have to be. There is a lot more you can learn. So I completed that course, and I received a high distinction in that, and I received a scholarship, thankfully. So when I got that, I was like, why do I need to finish high school? I'm not like learning anything, and I already have the scholarship. So just let me skip the last 2 years of high school and let me go to uni like straight away, please. Like, I really don't want to keep doing this for 2 years, just waiting to go to university. But that didn't work. They were saying stuff like 16 is too young, and you can't get entry into university at that age. So I would just, yeah, it was really hard for me to stomach basically waiting around for 2 years to go to university, where I would again have to sit through things like programming fundamentals, which was pretty much the same amount of annoying for me as high school itself. So it was really tough time for me, and I didn't know what to do. Yeah. So I did some research, and I found out that there's a TAFE course, which is basically community college for those people who aren't in Australia, which would give me admission into university, and I could do that TAFE course at 16, the age I was. So I could leave high school, do the TAFE course, and then go to university, which would save me like 1.5 years if I just stayed at high school. So I enrolled in TAFE course, and I turned down the scholarship, and I dropped out of high school like a true big brain genius. Yeah, I mean, Zuckerberg and Bill Gates dropped out of university, but I have them beat. I dropped out of high school. So the TAFE course was actually in it was an advanced diploma of network securities, and it was like all Linux based and about network security, obviously, which I didn't know. And it was an advanced diploma, and I picked it purely because it was the shortest one, with like the least amount of time commitment that would still get me into the university course that I wanted to get into. So I did that, and I managed to get through it. So I have an advanced diploma in network security, even though I don't need it at all, and I don't even remember like the course material or anything like that. But yeah, while I was doing that TAFE course, I started applying for app developer jobs in the city, so in Sydney City. And they were mostly internships, but I also did apply for like whatever I saw. I just basically spam applied for everything at that point. But I had a decent portfolio of things I had made for fun, like websites I had made it in WordPress for like small businesses and family friends. And I also had, of course, GWM at this point, which is it was a pretty polished app at that stage, and it's on iOS, Android, and it's a web app. So it was I think it was a pretty good like project to have on my portfolio. And I think that really did help me get my foot in the door. But I'm sure everyone knows, like at this stage, the general advice is to have a portfolio of projects. But make sure that you've spent time on them and they're polished, and they're not just like some tutorial that you've copied. It should be, has some sort of spin on it. So yeah, I only interviewed twice actually with two companies. One was like some Uber type thing that I don't even remember the name of anymore, and the other was a software agency called Tiger Spike. And they specialized in like apps and websites, making apps and websites for other businesses. So I got a take-home test from them, which I completed, and I then had an interview with the tech lead, which I honestly thought I did like really bad in, like the interview questions. Like I interviewed with the Uber place first, and they didn't ask me anything technical. So at that stage, I didn't know that like technical interviews are a thing. But with Thai Spike, when I interviewed and there was a technical interview, I was like so just like lost pretty much. Um, but I guess I did something right, or maybe my portfolio was good enough that they still offered me a paid internship for 6 months, which was amazing. So the internship was 9 to 5, 5 days a week. And I was doing the TAFE course 2 days a week after work. So those days were pretty rough. I had to go to the city. It took me like an hour and a half to travel there by transport each way, and then come back, go to TAFE, and then go home, and then the next day go to work. So it was kind of tough, but it was worth it. So for the Tiger Spike job, I actually applied for, I think, a senior Android position, which like makes me cringe so much looking back at that. Like I thought I could get that position straight away. I don't know if I actually thought that, or I was just like trying to get whatever I could get my hands on. But yeah, they were really, Tiger Spike was really nice, and they were really nurturing. And I honestly owe so much of my development and growth as like a professional software engineer to Tiger Spike. And while I was working there, I learned pretty much everything I know now. Like I knew at that point how to make an app. I had made apps and websites, but I didn't know how, like the amount of professional development and all the moving pieces it takes into to make something like say Instagram or like Discord or something like that. And I definitely had no idea about version control. I had never used Git. Obviously, I had no idea about agile processes either. But yeah, I learned a lot there. And the first project that I was assigned to as an intern was actually the Opal travel app, which is my state's public transport payment system. So it's like the card you tap to get on buses and trains and ferries and stuff like that. And at the start, I was basically just assigned maintenance stuff, like fixing bugs. But obviously at the start, I was like really slow and I needed a lot of help from the other developers. And there were times where I like had no idea what to do, and I basically just watched people, like it was like pair programming. They basically did it in front of me and I was learning from them. But yeah, eventually I slowly learned the process of like how to think through problems, how to estimate like tickets and pieces of work, and actually asking for help when you need it instead of bashing your head against the wall and just going around in circles. And I also got much better at like searching for answers on the internet, like specifically finding what I need to solve my problem I have, and obviously learning how to code better. Like with code reviews, it's a completely different experience when you're coding by yourself. Like it might be readable to you, but when you do PR, someone can tell you that like they don't even know what this does, so you need to refactor it in some way. So that was a really good time for me, just having fun and learning. Basically, it didn't feel like work. The only bad part was traveling, but yeah, what can you do? So my internship was extended, I think by 2 months, so it was like 8 months total. And at that point, I was like really impatient. I was really waiting and hoping to be hired as an associate software engineer. And I was doing like everything I could to prove myself that like I am good enough to be hired full time as an associate, which is like what you would be hired as after you do a university degree usually. And I started to basically, because of that, I started to garner a reputation of someone who could jump onto any problem or any project. Like, doesn't matter if it's Android, iOS, it's front end web, or even like back end web, like server stuff. Uh, I would I would get on it, get my hands dirty, and yeah, I would just like fix the problems, and I would help get stuff delivered and projects that were like tight deadlines and stuff like that. And yeah, I was eventually hired as an associate. Um, at that point, I think I was 17. And yeah, I just would recommend to anyone who's hoping to reach a higher level at like the job they already have is to really try and step out of your comfort zone, whether that's like you're strictly an iOS developer or strictly an Android developer or like web or something. Or if you're kind of, you don't like, you're not that socially interactive with people, it can really make a difference if you ask people if they need help, and offering to help other people, and like making people's lives easier, making your team work better and be more productive and things like that. It really can make a difference when you're being evaluated. And yeah, I just think it's really important to, it's not just about how good your code is or and stuff like that. It is also about how you work with other people and how you help them and how you can help the projects. So yeah, from there, I just got my hands on everything I could, and I really learned. Obviously, I got more and more used to the agile processes of how estimating work and breaking up complex pieces of work, um, like code reviews, sprints, kickoffs, desk checks, all those kinds of fun agile ceremonies. And of course, I learned how to code better as well, just by learning from other people and having to solve more complex problems. I also got infinitely better at debugging. I stopped I'm pretty sure before I joined Tigerspike, I just used print statements. I don't even know if I knew what breakpoints were. But yeah, I got infinitely better at debugging, as well as I got better at learning how designers think, like UI, UX designers, and how things should be interacted with, which is a completely different kind of thinking. Obviously, as programmers, it's not really our concern about what stuff looks like or how it should be interacted with, but it is good to know and anticipate, and even when you have to do those or make some decisions by yourself. So yeah, after almost 2 years as an associate, I was promoted to a mid-level engineer, and there I was even given opportunities to work on like lead developers and more responsibilities and stuff. So I was a mid for a bit over a year, and at that point, one of my old colleagues reached out to me with an offer to become a senior at a streaming company. And I was planning on taking it, but the company I was at that time, they managed to match the offer and also promoted me to senior. So I just stayed where I was. Um, but and then after a year of being there as a senior, I felt like it was time to move on. Anyways, so yeah, I moved on, and now I'm a senior, a software engineer at one of the world's fastest growing, biggest AI startups, which is just amazing. And yeah, so there you go. That's how I got to be a senior software engineer by 21, with no like real formal education about software engineering. Um, yeah, I really hope that this didn't come across as too braggy. But I wanted to share my story with you guys and maybe inspire some people or let them know that you never know where life can take you. I couldn't have imagined when I was in high school at 16 and I was struggling to concentrate in class and like wondering what my future is like. I couldn't imagine being where I am now and like how I would get here. So yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys. And if you have any questions or feedback or something you would like me to talk about more, um, yeah, please comment. And yeah, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe.